At 13, I learned what abandonment really feels like. Not from strangers, but from my own parents. One morning they drove me to a gas station, told me to grab a soda, and when I came back out, the car, my parents, my entire life, was gone. I thought that was the end of my story. But it wasn't. Because a man I barely knew, my uncle, took me in and rebuilt the pieces they shattered. 15 years later, when wealth, success, and peace finally found me, my parents suddenly reappeared, crying, desperate, and begging at my door. And they had no idea what awaited them. Stay with us. This story will leave you shocked. Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. I was 13 the day my life split cleanly into a before and an after. Before, I was just a kid, awkward, quiet, always trying too hard to earn the love of people who never knew how to give it. After was the day I learned that some people can break you without ever raising a hand. It was a Saturday morning in early fall. The kind where the air feels cold enough to sting your nose but warm enough to pretend things are normal. My parents said they were taking me out for breakfast, something we never did. I remember sitting in the back seat, clutching the straps of my backpack because I didn't understand why they told me to bring it. Homework, my dad had said. Might as well finish it after pancakes. We stopped at a gas station on the edge of town, the kind with flickering lights and dusty snacks no one buys. My mom turned around, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Go grab a soda, honey, she said. A treat. I should have known something was wrong right then. My parents hated spending money on anything that wasn't necessary. But I wanted to believe them. 13-year-olds still want to trust, even when they shouldn't. I walked inside, grabbed the cheapest drink I could find, and counted my coins twice just to be sure. The cashier, an older man with tired eyes, nodded at me as I left. There was nothing special about that moment, and yet, it would become the last time I ever saw him as a normal kid. The second I stepped outside, everything inside me froze. The spot where our car had been was empty. Not parked in another place, not moved a few feet, not running late. Gone. Just gone. I remember standing there, gripping the condensation on the plastic bottle, scanning the parking lot like my brain refused to believe what my eyes were screaming. Maybe they had circled around. Maybe they were playing a joke. Maybe they'd be back in a minute. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then 30. The bottle slipped from my hand and rolled across the pavement, but I couldn't make myself move. The sun felt too bright. The sounds too loud. Every heartbeat was a punch to my ribs. A part of me kept whispering, they are coming back. Another part, quieter, crueler, kept saying, no, they are not. I don't know how long I stood there before the cashier walked out to check on me. Kid, he said softly, you okay? You've been here a while. I tried to answer, but my voice cracked. So he called the police. And when they arrived, when they asked for my parents' numbers, when no one picked up, when every call went to voicemail, that was the moment the truth sank into my bones. My parents didn't forget me. They didn't lose me. They didn't have an emergency. They abandoned me. Intentionally. Deliberately. Effortlessly. And I was 13 years old, standing at a gas station with a backpack full of homework and no home to return to. The police station felt colder than the gas station parking lot. Maybe it was the air conditioning, or maybe it was the reality settling over me like a heavy, wet blanket. My parents weren't coming back. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not ever. I sat on a hard plastic chair, hugging my backpack like it was the last familiar thing in the world. The officers were kind, but kindness doesn't erase the ache of being unwanted. They asked the usual questions: name, school, emergency contacts. Each answer felt smaller than the last. Then came the question that sliced deeper than all the others. Do you have any relatives we can call? I hesitated. My family tree was tiny, more like a dead branch. A few cousins I barely knew, an aunt who lived halfway across the country. And then there was him. Uncle Raymond. My father's older brother. The black sheep, depending on who was telling the story. My parents called him irresponsible. Reckless. Too soft, my dad used to say, shaking his head whenever Raymond was mentioned. But they also whispered something else, something they never said out loud when they thought I was listening. He only pretends to be broke so people don't use him. I didn't understand it fully then, but I remembered the clues. expensive shoes, a sleek car he never talked about, envelopes he quietly slipped to relatives at Christmas. He wasn't poor. He was private. And he wanted nothing to do with my parents. Still, he was the only name I could give. So I did. The officers made the call. I watched their expressions shift, first confusion, then surprise, then something softer. One of them hung up and walked back to me. "He's on his way," the officer said. He sounded very concerned. Those words cracked something inside me. Concern. For me. Something my parents hadn't shown in years. It took less than an hour for him to arrive, though it felt like an eternity. When the station doors swung open, Uncle Raymond stepped inside. Not frantic, not angry, but purposeful. His eyes found mine instantly. "Kiddo," he breathed out, kneeling in front of me. "I'm here." Just 2 words. 2 simple words. But they wrapped around me tighter than any hug. The police explained everything. He didn't interrupt. Didn't act shocked. Didn't try to defend my parents. He just placed a steady hand on my shoulder and said, "You're coming with me." No hesitation. No questions. No doubt. And for the first time that night, I felt a flicker of safety. A small flame in a world that had just gone dark. The drive to Uncle Raymond's house felt unreal, like I was watching someone else's life from outside the window. The city lights blurred past in streaks, and every few minutes I caught him glancing at me, quietly checking if I was still breathing, still okay, still there. When we pulled into his neighborhood, my eyes widened. This wasn't just a nice area. It was another universe. Clean sidewalks, manicured lawns, homes that looked like they belonged in magazines. Nothing like the peeling paint and broken fences I grew up around. Then his house appeared. A stone mansion with warm lights glowing from every window, tall trees swaying softly in the yard, and a front door big enough to make me feel like an ant. I gulped. "Are you sure we're at the right place?" I whispered. Raymond smiled gently. "Yeah, kiddo. This is home." Home. The word echoed in my head like a foreign language. Inside was even more overwhelming. High ceilings, polished floors, a living room bigger than my entire old house. Everything smelled like cedar and lemon. A fireplace crackled quietly in the corner, as if the house itself was trying to say, "You're safe now." Raymond didn't give me a tour. He didn't show off. He simply walked me to a door at the end of the hallway and pushed it open. The room inside made me stop breathing. A comfortable bed with soft gray blankets. A window seat. A bookshelf. A desk. Soft lights. It didn't look like a guest room. It looked prepared. Waiting. Like he'd been expecting me long before the police called. I can sleep on the couch," I stammered. "No," he said firmly. "This is your room now. You deserve a place that's yours." My throat tightened. No one had ever said that to me before. He showed me where the bathroom was, told me clean clothes were in the dresser, and said if I needed anything, even if it was just to talk, I could wake him up anytime, no matter the hour. Before he left, he paused in the doorway. "I know today was a lot, but you're not alone anymore. Not ever again." He switched off the light and closed the door softly. That night, I lay on the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling, surrounded by warmth, safety, and silence I didn't know how to process. And somewhere between exhaustion and disbelief, a thought came to me, quiet, fragile, almost too hopeful to hold on to. Maybe my life wasn't ending today. Maybe it was only beginning. My first week at Uncle Raymond's felt like living inside a dream I wasn't sure I deserved. Every morning I'd wake up expecting to find the room gone. The soft blankets replaced with scratchy ones, the warm smell of breakfast swapped with my mom's usual burnt toast and cold silence. But every morning, Raymond was there, whistling in the kitchen, asking how I slept, offering me choices for breakfast like I'd earned the right to have preferences. But healing isn't a straight line. Sometimes it isn't a line at all, it's a jagged mess. School was the hardest part. My new school was nothing like the old one. The kids here wore brand-name clothes, carried expensive backpacks, and talked about vacations I had only seen in magazines and waiting rooms. When I walked into my first class, the teacher smiled warmly, but the whispering began almost immediately. "Who's the new kid? Where's he from? He looks nervous. He looks poor." No one said it to my face, but I heard it anyway. Kids always think they are whispering when they are not. I kept my head down, hoping invisibility would protect me. It didn't. The nights were even worse. Every sound, a door closing, Footsteps in the hallway, a car outside, made my heart jump. My brain kept replaying the moment at the gas station, reminding me over and over, people leave. People always leave. I had nightmares too. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, convinced I was standing alone in that parking lot again. Sometimes I'd find myself gripping my backpack in my sleep, like I was still 13, trying to hold onto anything that wouldn't disappear. Raymond noticed. He didn't push. He didn't lecture. Instead, he introduced structure, gentle, steady, safe. Dinner at the table every night. A short walk after school to clear the brain. Weekend movie nights. Slowly, the routine stitched the broken pieces together. One evening, after a nightmare left me trembling, Raymond knocked softly on my door. You okay, kiddo? I wanted to say yes. I wanted to pretend I was strong. But the lie stuck in my throat. So I nodded, and then shook my head. He stepped inside, sat at the edge of the bed, and said something no one had ever said to me before. You don't have to be brave all the time. Not here. That was the moment I realized something important. He wasn't trying to replace my parents. He was giving me something I never had. Stability. Safety. A foundation. And even though I couldn't say it out loud yet, I was finally starting to trust it. It happened on a Wednesday evening. Ordinary, quiet, uneventful. The kind of day no one expects to become a memory. I was sitting at the kitchen table, pretending to do homework, though my mind wandered every few minutes. Raymond was cooking dinner, humming off-key to some old jazz song on the radio. Then he said it. Casually. Softly. Hey, kiddo, I was thinking, your birthday's next week. I froze. Birthdays in my old house weren't celebrations. They were obligations. My parents would hand me a $5 bill or a cheap shirt from a clearance rack, complain about money, and call it a day. No cake. No candles. No effort. Most years, they forgot entirely. So I shrugged. It's just another day. Raymond paused mid-stir. Not in this house. I didn't know what that meant, not yet. The next Wednesday, I came home from school expecting the same routine. Quiet dinner, homework, sleep. But when I walked inside, the house smelled like vanilla frosting. The living room lights were dim, soft, warm. And there, on the dining table, was a cake. Not a store-bought one with crooked writing. Not something he grabbed last minute. A homemade chocolate cake with my name carefully written on top. Happy birthday, he said, stepping out of the kitchen with 2 plates in hand. 13 was rough. 14's going to be better. I promise. I stood there, staring at the cake. My eyes burned, but I fought the feeling. I didn't want to cry in front of him. I didn't want to look weak. But he just smiled gently. You don't have to act tough today. That was all it took. The tears came, quiet, shaking, unstoppable. I mumbled something like thank you, but the words didn't feel big enough. Because it wasn't the cake. It wasn't the candles. It wasn't even the celebration itself. It was the effort. Someone had thought about me. Planned for me. Cared enough to make something. For me. We sat down, cut the cake, and for the first time in my life, I didn't make a wish before blowing out the candles. I didn't need to. Because in that moment, everything I used to wish for, a safe home, a caring adult, someone who didn't treat me like a burden, was sitting right across the table. After cake, we watched a movie, my choice. He let me pick even though he clearly hated superhero films. Halfway through, he chuckled and said, this story makes no sense, and I laughed for what felt like the first real time in years. That night, lying in bed, I realized something. Raymond wasn't just helping me survive. He was helping me live. And that tiny spark of hope inside me finally began to grow. Life with Raymond slowly became normal, almost too normal. Safe routines. Warm meals. Someone asking how my day was. Someone noticing when I didn't sleep well. Someone who actually cared. But healing has a strange way of bringing back the past, piece by piece, like scattered shards of glass you can't stop stepping on. And mine came back one sharp edge at a time. It started months after my birthday. I was sitting in the cafeteria at school when 2 boys walked past my table. They weren't talking to me, just loud enough for everyone to hear. Hey, did you hear? The Michaels moved out of town. Yeah. They bought a new house. Big upgrade. I heard they have a baby now. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. The Michaels. My last name. My parents. At first, I thought I misheard. My brain refused to accept it. But the boys kept chatting, completely unaware of the hurricane they'd just unleashed inside me. They told everyone their kid ran away a few years back. Crazy, right?
Ran away?
That's messed up.
Guess they are happier now though. New baby, new start.
I don't remember the rest of the school day. Just a ringing in my ears, like my heartbeat was trying to escape my chest. When I got home, I tried to pretend everything was fine.
I even made small talk during dinner. But Raymond noticed the moment something shifted behind my eyes.
Kiddo, he said quietly, what happened today?
I shook my head.
It's nothing.
Just school. But he didn't buy it.
He never did when it came to this kind of pain.
The truth sat in my throat like concrete.
Finally, I whispered, they have a new baby.
Raymond set down his fork.
The way he looked at me, not shocked, not pitying, just deeply sad, told me he'd known something like this might happen. I heard some kids talking. I continued. They said my parents moved.
Bought a new house.
Told everyone I ran away.
That part hurt the most. Not just that they replaced me,
but that they rewrote my existence as an inconvenience. Raymond leaned forward. Listen to me.
None of that is your fault.
I know, I said automatically.
But I didn't know. Not really.
Every part of me wondered if I'd been too quiet, too awkward, too difficult to love. Maybe the new baby was better.
Easier. Wanted.
Raymond must have read every thought on my face because he shook his head firmly. People like your parents don't change. They didn't leave because of who you were. They left because of who they are.
I swallowed hard.
Do you think they are happier now?
Raymond didn't answer immediately. He folded his hands, choosing his words carefully. I think they are people who run from responsibility.
And people like that might look happy from the outside, but they carry their choices with them forever. I stared at my plate, unsure how to feel, anger, sadness, relief. It all tangled together like knots in a rope. Then he added softly, you weren't the problem, kiddo.
They were. I didn't cry. Not that night. But something inside me shifted.
A new truth, painful but freeing. My parents didn't abandon me because I wasn't enough. They abandoned me because they were never capable of being parents in the first place. Life with Raymond settled into a rhythm that felt almost unreal. Breakfast together.
Car rides filled with soft jazz.
Evenings with warm meals and quiet conversations. For the first time in my life, safety wasn't something I imagined. It was something I lived. But stability can fool you. It can make you forget that life still has sharp edges waiting in the dark. The first sign came on a Sunday morning. Raymond was cooking eggs, his special Sunday recipe, when his hands suddenly trembled.
The spatula clattered to the floor.
I rushed over, panicked, but he brushed it off with a laugh. Getting old, kiddo, he joked, gripping the counter a little too hard. I believed him. I wanted to believe him.
But it didn't stop there.
Over the next weeks, I noticed more things.
Little things. Raymond sitting down more often. Raymond holding his chest after walking up the stairs.
Raymond losing his train of thought mid-sentence, which had never happened before. One evening, I found him in the living room, staring at the wall like he'd forgotten why he walked in. You okay?
I asked. He blinked, forcing a smile. Just tired. But his eyes betrayed him. Something was wrong. It wasn't long before he couldn't hide it anymore. I woke one night to the sound of something falling.
I ran out of my room and found him on the floor, breathing heavily, hand clutching his left side. He tried to laugh it off again, but this time there was no humor, just fear.
He whispered my name. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just, helplessly. An ambulance ride. Cold hospital lights. Doctors talking too fast.
Words like progressed, complications, advanced. Words no child wants to hear about the only adult who ever fought for them. He had a genetic heart condition, one he'd hidden from everyone, even my parents. The doctors said he'd been managing it for years, but now it was catching up. I sat beside his hospital bed, clutching his hand like it was the last anchor I had. I'm okay, he kept insisting, voice weak but steady. You don't have to worry about me. But I did. Because suddenly the fear I had felt at 13 returned, the fear of losing someone, of being left behind, of having the rug ripped from under me again. Except this time, it wasn't abandonment. It was life. Cruel, unpredictable life. Raymond squeezed my hand gently. Hey,
he whispered. I'm still here. And I'm not done fighting. But even then, deep down, I knew the truth. Everything was about to change. Raymond stayed in the hospital for a week, then another, then another. Every day after school, I would drop my backpack at the door and rush straight to his bedside. The room became our second home. White walls, the soft beep of machines, the faint smell of antiseptic. But somehow, when I sat beside him, it didn't feel cold. He always greeted me the same way. There's my kiddo. Even on the days he looked pale, tired, drained, he made space for me. Asked about my homework. Teased me about the cafeteria food.
Told me stories from his youth, most of which sounded too wild to be real. Motorcycles, road trips, a night in a jail cell for creative protesting.
But it wasn't the stories that stuck with me. It was the lessons hidden inside them.
If life knocks you down, he'd say, you don't get up because you're strong.
You get up because you decide to. People will disappoint you.
Don't let that turn your heart into stone. You're allowed to outgrow the people who hurt you. He told me things my parents never would have said, things he wanted me to carry long after he was gone.
And he knew. I could see it in his eyes.
One afternoon, after a battery of tests left him exhausted, he motioned for me to sit closer. I need you to listen, he whispered.
I nodded, heart pounding.
You've built a lot of strength, he said.
More than most adults ever do. But strength isn't just surviving.
It's choosing what kind of person you'll be, even after life tears you apart.
My throat tightened.
He continued, I'm sorry your parents failed you.
I'm sorry they let the world teach you pain before love.
But I want you to promise me something. His hand found mine, weak, but steady. Promise me you won't let what they did become your story. Tears blurred my vision. Raymond, I don't want to lose you.
He gave a small, sad smile. Kiddo, losing people is part of life.
But being loved, truly loved, once you have that, it stays with you. Even when we're not in the same room anymore.
I shook my head. Don't talk like that. He squeezed my hand gently. You're not alone. You never will be again.
And when the time comes, I want you to live.
Not out of fear. Not out of anger.
But out of gratitude, for the fact that you survived everything meant to break you. A tear rolled down his cheek, the first I'd ever seen. Build a life worth living, he whispered. Then promise me one more thing.
What?
Don't let them, your parents, ever take credit for the person you become.
My heart broke right there. But I made the promise.
And in that quiet hospital room, holding the hand of the only real family I'd ever known, I understood.
Raymond wasn't just preparing me for his goodbye. He was preparing me for the rest of my life. Raymond passed away on a cold Thursday morning.
There was no dramatic last breath, no whispered final words in my ear. He slipped away quietly, early enough that the world outside was still dark. A nurse found me asleep in the chair beside him and gently shook my shoulder.
I knew instantly. Before she even spoke. Before I opened my eyes. His hand was still warm when I held it.
But everything else was gone. The next week moved in slow motion, arrangements, calls, forms, condolences from people I'd never met. Everyone kept saying the same thing.
He was a good man.
He had a big heart.
He loved you. They were right. But the past tense broke me every time.
Raymond's funeral was small, simple, peaceful, just like he always wanted. A few old friends from his traveling days, a couple distant relatives, and me. I stood beside the casket feeling like the world had tilted. He had been the one steady thing in my life. The one person who chose me when everyone else didn't. And now I was standing there, alone again.
Or so I thought.
3 days after the funeral, Raymond's attorney, a man named Harold Whitby, called me for a meeting. His voice was formal, but not cold. Your uncle left instructions, he said.
Very detailed ones.
I think you should come in. The law office looked like something out of an old movie. Dark wood bookshelves, leather chairs, the faint smell of paper and history.
Harold motioned for me to sit.
We'll begin the reading in a moment, he said, shuffling through a stack of neatly organized documents. There are items that will be a surprise. A surprise?
I didn't know whether to feel nervous or honored. Finally, he began.
Raymond's voice, preserved in carefully written words, flowed across the room. To my nephew, Harold read aloud, who became the son I never had.
My throat tightened. I stared at the table as he continued.
You came into my life unexpectedly, but you brought purpose with you. You reminded me that family isn't always blood, it's who stays.
Who cares?
Who chooses you even when life doesn't. I blinked hard, trying not to fall apart in front of Harold.
Then the terms of the will began.
First,
The house.
the mansion I'd lived in, the room that had become my sanctuary, left entirely to me.
Second, his savings.
Investments.
Bonds. All in my name.
Third, his business shares, multiple small companies I never even knew he owned.
Fourth,
A letter addressed directly to me, sealed with wax. I sat frozen. That can't be right, I whispered. All of it.
Harold nodded gently.
Your uncle was a wealthy man. Very private, but very intentional.
I didn't know what to say.
My hands trembled as I held the papers, each line reminding me of how deeply he had believed in me. But then something happened that ripped me out of that moment. A knock on the door. Harold stood to open it, assuming it was a staff member. But it wasn't.
It was them. My parents.
Standing in the doorway, breathless, wide-eyed, faces pale and full of shock, as if the universe had dragged them here at the worst possible moment. My mother clutched her purse like she'd run across town.
My father looked like he'd aged 10 years.
And then my mother said the words that made the room spin. Honey, we need to talk. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. I had to be. Because the two people standing in the doorway, faces pale, clothes rumpled, breathing like they'd sprinted from somewhere, were the last people I ever expected to see again.
My parents.
The ones who left me at a gas station. The ones who replaced me with a new baby. The ones who told the world I ran away.
My mother's eyes filled with tears the second she saw me.
Sweetheart, oh my God, look at you. My father swallowed hard, his hands shaking. We heard about Raymond.
We're so sorry.
We came as soon as we found out. I didn't move.
Didn't smile. Didn't speak.
Harold, the attorney, straightened his papers politely. This meeting is private. You'll need to. But my mother rushed forward, reaching for my hands like she had any right to touch me.
I stepped back. Her hands froze midair.
Honey, please don't look at us like that, she whispered. We're your parents.
The word hit me like a slap. Parents. As if that title belonged to them.
As if biology erased abandonment.
I finally spoke.
What are you doing here? My father exhaled shakily, brushing his hair back.
We made mistakes. We know that now. But we want to make things right.
You're still our son.
I almost laughed.
Almost. Harold cleared his throat gently, sensing the tension. Mr. and Mrs. Michaels, perhaps this isn't the time. We have every right to be here, my mother snapped suddenly. Then she caught herself, forcing her voice back into a softer tone. We want to reconnect.
Reconnect?
They really thought it would be that easy. A memory flashed through my mind. Me at 13, holding a soda bottle, staring at an empty parking lot. Waiting.
Praying.
Believing they'd return.
My father stepped closer.
We heard about the will, too. We're glad Raymond took care of you.
Really, we are. But he was still your uncle.
Family is family, right?
Something inside me hardened at that.
Family?
They dared use that word.
What do you want?
I asked flatly.
My mother's lips trembled.
A second chance.
Another shot at being a family.
They looked at me with practiced sorrow.
Their eyes were wet, but their voices too calm. Too calculated. Then she added, we've been going through a hard time.
We lost our house. Your siblings are struggling.
And when we heard that Raymond left you a home and, well, assets, we just... There it was. The truth.
Clear. Ugly.
Predictable. They weren't here for love. Or guilt. Or reconciliation. They were here for money. The room felt suddenly smaller. Harold's expression tightened, but he stayed silent, letting me decide. My parents waited, hopeful, confident, even. My mother whispered, we're your family. You'll help us, won't you? I stared at them, at the people who threw me away like I was nothing. And for the first time in my life, I realized something powerful. This time, I wasn't the one begging. They were. The room went silent, thick, suffocating, heavy. My parents stood there like two actors waiting for a cue, eyes glossy, bodies stiff with rehearsed vulnerability.
But something in their performance faltered the longer I stayed quiet. Because I wasn't 13 anymore. I wasn't scared. I wasn't abandoned. I was calm. And my calm terrified them. My father cleared his throat.
We didn't come for money.
We came because we miss you. I raised an eyebrow. You miss me? Or you miss what I might have?
He flinched, just slightly, but enough to reveal the crack in his mask. My mother stepped in quickly. Honey, that's not fair.
We've been through a lot. We've lost so much. We just want our family back. Family.
There it was again. The word they only remembered when convenient. I took a slow breath and sat down across from them, folding my hands on the table like Raymond used to do when he wanted the truth out of someone.
They watched me with nervous eyes, unsure where this was heading.
Let's talk, I said simply. My father sat abruptly, relief washing through him. My mother rushed to sit beside him as if afraid I'd change my mind.
They began their story, one they'd clearly practiced.
How they moved for a fresh start. How life became harder than expected. How they had regrets every day about what happened at the gas station. Not leaving me at a gas station. Just what happened. Always avoiding responsibility, even in apology. I listened without blinking, without interrupting, without softening. The quieter I stayed, the more panicked they became. At one point, my mother reached for my hand again.
We're here now.
That's what matters, right?
I pulled my hand back. No, I said.
What matters is why.
My father stiffened.
We told you why. You told me a version, I corrected. Not the truth.
That was when they panicked for real. My father's voice cracked.
We're broke, okay?
We lost our home. Your mother lost her job.
Your siblings.
I held up a hand.
So you need money.
Silence.
A heavy, guilty, suffocating silence.
My mother broke first.
Yes, she whispered.
We need help. But you our child.
Children help their parents. I leaned back, letting their words hang in the air. They looked at me desperately now, faces pale, breath shaky, because they knew I held the power this time. You abandoned me, I said softly. Now you're begging me.
My father opened his mouth, but no sound came out.
For the first time in my life, they understood something they never expected.
I wasn't the powerless child they left behind. I was the adult in the room. And they were the ones scrambling to survive.
My parents sat across from me, shrinking by the second. Their confidence, what little they brought, was evaporating under the weight of the silence in the room.
I let them sit in it. Then, calmly, I slid a folder across the table. A thick one. Neatly organized. Raymond style.
What's this? My father asked, voice shaky.
Proof, I said.
He hesitated, then opened it. My mother leaned closer, eyes narrowing as page after page flipped in front of them. Their faces drained of color. Because they recognized everything. The first document. Their signed abandonment report. The real one. The one they told everyone didn't exist. Not ran away. Not missing. Not we don't know what happened.
No.
They had signed paperwork officially relinquishing parental rights.
My father swallowed hard.
Where did you? The truth has a way of surfacing, I said.
My mother shook her head rapidly. It wasn't like that.
We were under pressure. We were confused. We didn't.
You did, I cut in. You chose it.
You chose freedom from responsibility. I watched her hands tremble as she reached the second section of the folder. The apartment lease. The new house purchase agreement. The baby registry.
All dated right after they abandoned me.
You didn't lose your home, I continued. You upgraded.
You didn't struggle. You celebrated. You had a new baby. A new life.
And you told everyone I ran away because the truth made you look like monsters.
My father slammed the folder shut. Stop. You don't understand.
No, I said, voice steady.
You don't understand.
Raymond kept everything.
Every document. Every receipt. Every message. He knew you'd try to rewrite history.
He knew someday I would need the truth. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Real or fake, I couldn't tell. We were young. We made mistakes. You were 38, I reminded her. Old enough to know right from wrong. Old enough to plan a whole new life without me. My father tried a different tactic. Anger.
Why are you doing this? Why bring all this up? You're successful now.
You don't need to hold on to the past.
I leaned forward slightly. But the past is why you're here.
Isn't it?
Their silence answered for them.
Then I pulled out the final document, a copy of the agreement where they accepted money from Raymond. Quiet, off the books, in exchange for never contacting me again.
That was the final blow. My mother crumpled.
He told us we weren't capable of raising you.
He was right, I said softly. My father's jaw clenched.
We were desperate.
No, I said.
You were selfish.
They didn't argue. Because there was nothing left to defend. Everything was laid bare.
The lies. The abandonment.
The new life.
The money they took. The story they told to save their reputation. They weren't here to reunite. They were here because life finally took from them what they stole from me.
And now, they needed the child they had thrown away. But I wasn't a child anymore.
And they couldn't manipulate a grown version of the person they tried to erase. My parents sat frozen, staring at the documents spread across the table like pieces of their own guilt laid out for autopsy. Every page was a mirror they couldn't escape, reflecting who they had been, who they still were, and what they had done. For the first time since they walked in, neither of them spoke. My father rubbed his temples, shaking his head as if he could undo the truth with enough denial. My mother clutched her purse, knuckles white, as though it might anchor her to a reality slipping away. I leaned back in my chair, calmer than I'd ever been in their presence. Now, I said quietly, you know that I know everything. My father opened his mouth, then closed it again. His voice finally emerged, thin and brittle. You have to understand, we were drowning.
We didn't have support.
Raymond offered us a way out.
And you took it, I said. You took it without hesitation.
You signed me away like a piece of trash. My mother flinched as though I'd hit her. We regretted it every day.
Stop lying, I said. Not loudly. Not cruelly. Just truthfully.
If you regretted it, why didn't you call?
Why didn't you try to find me?
Why didn't you come to the hospital when I was 15 and broke my arm? Raymond told you.
Her eyes widened in panic.
He said not to. He said nothing. I interrupted.
He only told you I was safe.
You chose to stay gone.
They both looked down.
Look at me, I said. Slowly, painfully, they lifted their eyes. For the first time, I saw the truth written across their faces, not remorse, but fear.
Fear of consequences. Fear of losing what they came for.
Fear of facing the one person they thought they'd erased.
I folded my hands on the table. You didn't come to reconnect. You didn't come to apologize. You came because you're broke. Because you lost your home. Because you need money. My father stiffened.
We're still your parents.
No, I said, my voice steady as steel. You're the people who gave birth to me. That's all.
My mother started crying, loudly, dramatically, the kind of performance she used to use to get out of trouble when I was younger.
But I didn't move. Didn't comfort. Didn't reach out.
Because I finally understood what Raymond had taught me. You can forgive people without letting them back into your life.
And you can love yourself enough to close the door.
I'm not giving you anything, I said firmly.
Not money. Not a home. Not a place in my life. My father's face twisted.
So you're abandoning us?
The irony nearly made me laugh. No, I said.
I'm just returning the favor.
My mother sobbed harder.
My father stood abruptly, as if trying to regain control. You'll regret this someday. I stood too. I've spent my whole life carrying the weight of people who didn't want me. Today, I'm putting it down. They stared at me, stunned, as if they truly believed their tears would magically open a door they'd slammed shut 15 years ago.
I walked to the office door and opened it.
This conversation is over.
They hesitated. Leave, I said softly. And don't come back.
They walked out slowly, pausing once in the hallway, maybe hoping I'd call out, ask them to stay, give them something. I didn't.
The door clicked shut behind them. And for the first time in my life,
I felt free. In the days after my parents walked out of the attorney's office, I expected to feel empty. Lost.
Angry. Something. Anything.
Instead,
I felt lighter. Not happy. Not joyful.
But unburdened, the way you feel after finally putting down a weight you've carried for far too many years. Raymond's house felt different too.
Quieter, but not in a lonely way. More like it was finally mine. The walls didn't echo with abandonment anymore.
They echoed with memories, movie nights, burnt toast, badly sung jazz songs, birthday candles, laughter.
All the things he'd given me.
And I knew exactly what he'd want me to do next.
Live. Not just survive. Not just endure. Live. So I started small.
I volunteered at a local community center after school. Kids everywhere. Loud, messy, chaotic.
But some of them had eyes like mine at 13. Quiet. Guarded.
Carrying stories they didn't know how to say out loud. One boy, Matteo, followed me around like a shadow.
He didn't talk much, but he watched everything.
One day, he tugged on my sleeve and whispered, "You're not like the others. You listen." And that was the moment I understood why Raymond had fought so hard for me, not because he had to, but because he wanted to change the trajectory of a life that could still be saved.
I wanted to do the same. So I kept showing up. Week after week.
Helping with homework, supervising art projects, teaching kids how to shoot baskets even though I was terrible at it. And slowly, without meaning to, I became part of something bigger than myself. A community. A purpose.
A new kind of family.
I also reconnected with a few mentors from school, teachers who had always believed in me. They came to the house, shared dinner, filled the space with conversation. At one point, Ms. Daniels, my former English teacher, looked around and said, "This place feels warm. Like someone built it with love."
I smiled.
He did. And then there were the neighbors, people Raymond had quietly helped over the years.
They started dropping by too. Cookies. Cards. Stories about him I'd never heard. They didn't come out of obligation.
They came because they genuinely missed him, and wanted me to know I wasn't alone.
My family wasn't the one I was born into. It was the one I built. Piece by piece. Person by person. Choice by choice.
And every time I helped a kid with a math problem, or listened to one of their fears, or told them they mattered, I felt a piece of Raymond living on, through me.
He didn't just save me from a gas station. He gave me a life worth passing forward.
And I was determined to keep building something worthy of the man who believed in me when no one else did. Life settled into something real, something steady. The chaos of confronting my past faded, replaced by a quiet strength I didn't know I possessed.
I thought the chapter with my parents was over. That the door had closed cleanly, permanently. But life rarely ends chapters so neatly.
A few months later, on a rainy Tuesday evening, my doorbell rang. The sound echoed through the house, sharp and unwelcome. I wiped my hands on a towel and walked to the entryway, expecting a delivery or a neighbor. When I opened the door, I froze.
My parents stood on the porch again.
They looked worse this time, exhausted, desperate. Their clothes soaked from the rain. My mother's mascara streaked down her face. My father's shoulders slumped as if life had pressed him into the ground. Before I could speak, my mother whispered, "Please, we don't have anywhere else to go."
She wasn't angry now. She wasn't pretending. She was defeated. My father stepped forward.
"We just need a place to stay for a few days.
We'll figure the rest out."
We're sorry." For a long moment, I just stood there, watching the rain trace lines down their faces. 15 years ago, I was the one abandoned in the cold.
Now, the roles had reversed.
And the universe was asking me one final question.
What kind of person will you choose to be?
Raymond's voice echoed in my memory. Strength isn't just surviving. It's choosing who you become afterward.
I exhaled slowly. I'm not angry anymore, I said.
I'm not holding on to what you did. My mother reached for me, hope flickering in her eyes.
But I stepped back.
Forgiving you, I continued, doesn't mean inviting you back into my life. It doesn't mean letting you hurt me again. It doesn't erase the years you chose to live without me.
My father's face crumpled. So this is it?
You're shutting us out.
No, I said gently. You shut yourselves out a long time ago.
I'm just choosing not to reopen what you closed.
They both began to cry. Real tears this time. No performance. No manipulation. Just two people facing consequences they never expected to return to them. The rain fell harder. The porch light flickered. I hope you find the help you need, I said softly. But it won't be here. My mother whispered my name, barely audible. My father bowed his head. I stepped inside. And with a calmness I never imagined having, I closed the door. No anger. No hatred. Just finality.
Behind me was the home I built, filled with the love I earned, the people I chose, and the legacy Raymond left me. In front of me, beyond the door, was a past that no longer controlled me. For the first time in my life, I felt truly free. And sometimes, freedom is the most powerful ending of all.